Thanks for joining us again for our Reading the Bible together. Tonight we are continuing into our series on Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount, we started last week with a little bit of an introduction, just sort of explaining Matthew's place in the Bible and Jesus' place in Matthew, and just kind of looking at the idea of the whole Bible really is about Jesus, and how Matthew just pulls that all together right at the beginning of the book. And so you can go back and check that out if you want to know more about that. But this week we're going to start with the Beatitudes, the famous part of the Sermon on the Mount, the blessed are. And so we need to talk about that idea of blessing, because the word bless is sort of this very specific kind of a word. So blessed in the Bible, or blessed, means receiving good things because you are in God's favor. That's the context that we need to remember as we go through this, what that word really means in the Bible. And so this isn't actually new. Again, the whole Bible's about Jesus, and there's lots of ways where the Old Testament and the New Testament are woven together that we don't always notice at first until we kind of keep reading back and forth through everything and looking at it all together. This idea of being blessed and having favor from God is not a new concept at all in the New Testament, and there's lots of Old Testament examples. Let's start with Psalm 1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. So this is someone who is happy because they understand God's word and meditate on it. And these people are going to experience God's favor.
Now, when we talk about God's favor, that doesn't mean just getting nice things that you want from God. It doesn't mean you have a guarantee that God will protect you from any kind of difficulty. It does mean knowing God is with you, and you can trust Him to be with you whatever happens. In other words, knowing and loving God and knowing that He loves you. We talked last week about some of the parallels between Jesus and Moses that Matthew brings up. Moses, interestingly enough, at the end of his ministry in Deuteronomy, talks about blessings. But in his format, he's talking about blessings and cursings. And so I'm going to read just a little bit of that. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 28. We're going to start with verses 1 through 4. If you will only obey the Lord your God by diligently observing all His commandments that I am commanding you today, the Lord your God will set you high above the nations of the earth. All these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the Lord your God. Blessed you shall be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed in the fruit of your womb, the fruit of your ground, the fruit of your livestock, both the increase of your cattle and the issue of your flock, and so on. And there's a whole list of other blessings. But, this begins in the same chapter, verse 15, but if you will not obey the Lord your God by diligently observing all His commandments and decrees, which I am commanding you today, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl, and so on. So, Jesus is announcing the kingdom, and He's announcing the blessings of the new covenant, and He doesn't have a list of cursings here, like Moses did, and we can be happy about that, but some of the blessings that He talks about may not seem like blessings. They may not seem like what people would want. Ultimate fulfillment of this is looking to when the kingdom comes on earth as it is in heaven. So we may have to be patient to get the whole fruition and the whole end result of some of these blessings. So we're going to read we're going to talk about the first four. There are 9 of them. And we're going to talk about the first 4 tonight. And I'm just going to read them now. You've heard these before now. The word is blessed or blessed. If you usually, when you read it in the King James, you say blessed because that's the rhythm of it. It doesn't matter which way you pronounce it. It's the same word. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. So, blessed are the poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, and those who hunger and thirst for righteousness.
So, well, let's start with the poor in spirit. It says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And if we take a closer look at the poor in spirit, we're going to realize that that means that if you're poor in spirit, you know how much you need God and the help that He offers. We've seen places in the Bible, and actually Jesus Himself says that the wealthy have a hard time seeing the need that they have for God. And the poor in the spirit know that they need something.
And then, blessed are those who mourn, because they will be comforted. Mourning, we usually associate with the loss of another person who's important in our lives. We all experience loss, and that's not the only kind of loss that we have. We have all sorts of loss. It could involve business. It could involve, in addition to losing a person that's close to us that we love, it could involve some kind of financial reversal. It could involve not being able to fulfill your vocation that you thought God had called you to, or you've made plans for something or other that fall through. It could be all kinds of things. But only through knowing God and knowing that He is taking care of us can we have the proper perspective on this loss. And so eventually God promises us, those of us who mourn for whatever it is, that we will be comforted.
And perspective is really important on this next one too. The meek, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. This one came up in our psalm a few weeks back. Meek doesn't mean wimpy. Doesn't mean we're a doormat. It just means we realize our true standing before God, and that we're not self-absorbed with our own prestige, with our own power, but thinking instead of the welfare of others. And that is going to give you that's going to give you blessings before God, and you're going to also have a much more blessed sort of life than if you're just totally turned in on yourself. If we're at peace with God in His world, then His world does belong to us because we are His children. And so being at peace with Him in this place makes us have that internal and external blessing.
Right. Then the next one is the hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, because they will be filled. Righteousness here is an interesting word. It can mean justice. It has to do with right relationships between people. When it talks about hungering and thirsting for something, it means that it implies that there's scarcity. And so if you're hungering and thirsting for righteousness, you're looking around you and you're saying, there's not enough righteousness around here. There needs to be, there are justice issues that need to be addressed. And we want that for not only for ourselves, but for other people.
Yes.
If we want to have good relationships, we all have issues of justice where we think we've been wrong. And God does promise that in the final story, everything will be put right, and we want these things to be put right for ourselves. But we really do want people to work together, to get along together in the God's kingdom and in the church. And so we want justice for ourselves, and we want justice for everybody else. And so if we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we are in God's plan for moving towards a time when all those needs will be filled as well.
So this is Jesus, one of his first steps into inaugurating his new kingdom is to gather these followers together and start speaking to them in what is now called the Sermon on the Mount. And so he's starting a new kingdom. This is a new movement. And we need to remember that as his followers, we are waiting for that fulfillment of his kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven. In fact, that's why we say that in the Lord's Prayer. So living in the Beatitudes moves us closer to that moment. And we know that eventually Christ is going to complete that process. But it is a process, and it's not instantaneous. So we need to learn to live in this moment of now and not yet, and live and grow with these blessings as Jesus is making his kingdom happen inside us, in our own lives, and in the world around us.